Hello everybody, Allister Durham here, welcome back to my channel, and today this is part 3 of the visiting Geevor Mine, where we're going to go into Wheel Mexico Mine via the mill. So this is the, hopefully if I can record it, the little tour of the mine. Starts in a couple of minutes, so yeah. Taken quite a lot of photos so far, so I'll do a video of that. And so stay tuned as hopefully we go into the mine. Okay, folks, now we've come to the picking belt. This is actually the washing tunnel, and of course all this stone right in now has all been washed, nice and clean for us. And of course one of the things we have to do now is get rid of the debris coming up from underground. Yes, we get some metal up, but we've got electromagnet here, that will be taking care of that. But as you can see from the photograph here, this job has been done. This photograph here in particular is of women working during the Second World War on the picking belt. But this job, the picking belt, has been going on in Cornish mining for hundreds of years. As a matter of fact, a job like this was given to women known as bell maidens, and they had a brilliant way of dealing with stone. For example, if we take two rocks like this and we say, right, that one's got tin, that one haven't, this one will feel like a cannonball in your hand. You really feel the weight of that. So they had an eye for it, they knew what to look for. And of course, there's other debris coming up from underground, plastic, coil, wires, etc., gloves, all got to be taken off. And as a matter of fact, when I was here on a couple of occasions, a miner coming up for retirement underground, so he's got 12 months to go. He might come up here, he's given a nice little chair there to sit on, and he will just sit here all day long, passing the time away, and basically he's keeping an eye out for any explosive, which is very, very, very rare it does happen. But because he's probably trained in the use of explosives, he's here and he's able to deal with it, and then of course it's taken away and dealt with in a safe manner. But that was very, very rare that would happen, but that would give that miner a chance now for the last 12 months, having a bit of an easy time of it. He's worked very hard all his life. And basically, you sit down, perhaps on occasion, as Johnny Johnson told me, if he was good enough, he would get a cup of tea on occasion, but you'd have to be good enough for that. Let's go on down a bit further. Fantastic. Okay. So now we've come to what we call the winding mill, or the site in the mill. As you can see, we've got our ball mill there. Again, we had a bigger one that's hitting behind you. Unfortunately, again, that was sold off. But now, as we just talked about reducing those chippings down, what we're going to do now, we're going to throw all those chippings that used to come out of the big pipe there into these pipes here that will lead into the ball mill, because the ball mill was full of these, hundreds and hundreds of these. I'm going to pass this round to you. Don't drop it on your foot because it will hurt. Now, you probably can already gather that the noise by now, you wouldn't even be able to hear yourself think here. The noise would be ridiculous. So everybody in this area, certainly right throughout the mill, would be wearing some kind of air protection. Because basically what happens is those chippings come into the ball mill, again with the water being pumped out the mine. That's constantly going around with these balls going around inside, and they're smashing up those chippings and reducing them now to a fine sand, or what we call a slurry. Now at one time, all these ball mills were filled with these metal plates. Just give you an idea of what the noise was like. That's just a couple of taps on that. In the 70s, we thought, no, that's too noisy. The problem is with these plates, as you can imagine as well, they do wear out in time and they had to be changed periodically. The problem with them is, as the men in the mill will tell you, they would go like razor blades and they're quite easy to cut your hands on them. So they took all them out and they replaced it with a lovely idea from Sweden, rubber. And that rubber, incidentally, used to last longer. And even though it does break down after a while, all these slurry, before it goes to the shaking tables, goes to a filter box, because that filter box will then sort out all that sand into large, medium and small, and each table is designed to take either large, medium or small. And any bits of rubber, they get caught up in the filter as well and cleaned out. But that also would make these work better, bigger bang for your buck, if you will, because now these iron balls now will bounce off this rubber and go back into that centrifugal force, if you like. So they certainly work better. After a period of time, these will break down and break down and break down and break down, till eventually they go the size of marbles, till eventually they just go to nothing. We're going to talk a bit about that later on, because again, there is recycling involved in that. And basically what happens is, whatever shift box is on, say if Johnny Johnson was on, by experience he could go and look at the slurry come out the end and he would say to his boys, yeah, another ton of balls in there needs topping up or whatever. So they're never ever taken out. Okay, let's move on to the shaking tables. Follow me. Okay folks, shaking tables. There was over 95 shaking tables in the mill at one time, all working of course. Of course the water would have been this lovely colour. It would have been this red, dirty, oxidey colour. And basically all this pipe work is basically leading from that box you can see there, which is the filter, and all then those sand particles are sent off to whatever designated table they're going to. I've got a flask or bottle of sand here. I'm going to pass this round to you, because what I want you to feel a moment is what it's like to feel the same flask that's full of tin. The shaking table roughly vibrates at about 120 beats a minute, and again it works on gravity. The heavy stuff, as it comes onto the table, works in three different ways. The vibration action, the water action, the heavy stuff. I've put a little bit on the table for you. Can you see these kind of little bits of black tide marks here? That's your metals. That stays at the back table. And as you can see on each side of the shaking tables, there's these three pockets, which we name quite aptly tailings, middlings, and headings. Basically, tailings is sand. It's no longer any use to us, or I say no longer, again, it's waste material, but it becomes a byproduct, and we stockpile that down the bottom, and again, we sell it off to anybody who requires sand from us. One obvious is builders. The middlings pocket is sand particles which still got metals in it. That goes through the whole process again, and this one up here is the money box. That's one we're after. That's where all your tin, your coppers, other metals, etc. are going to end up. And that will then continue on its journey, heading on down for further treatment. I've got something here I'd like to show you as well, because this plays a big part in tin mining. And anybody would like to hazard a guess on what it is?
Is that some of iron ore or something? Iron ore or something?
Nope. Lead, no. No. That's all right. No. Well, I'll give you a clue because it seems lately there's a bit of a let's say a bit of a rhythm pattern going. Has everybody involved in Cornish tin mining? We're going to talk a little bit more about that when we go down through. And just to give you an idea of what it is that we're after, here is some tin concentrate for you to have a look at. Just give you an idea of what that looks like. As a matter of fact, anybody that's played with metals or done a bit of smelting or whatever, or in engineering or whatever, you can put that into a crucible pot, put a nice flame on that, and then that will turn silver as it starts to melt. Right, we're going to go on down a little bit further.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Here on in now is we've now got that valuable tin concentrate. Again, off the tables now, all 95 tables are going full pelt now. But what we need to do is, we're talking about now quality control, because as that tin comes off the shaking tables now, we couldn't really send it to the smelters as it was, because we've got to get rid of the oxides and we've got to get rid of the sulfides. Now, the only time up until about the 50s, we had this machinery, but I think it stopped long before, and I think it stopped just before the First World War, just after the First World War. That was cooking the tin to get rid of the arsenic. You're saying cooking the tin, Steve. What do you mean by cooking the tin? Well, basically, you've probably seen all those big chimneys dotted around here, and you're probably saying, oh, I know what those are for. They're for ventilation in the mine. No. Because, do you remember I talked about hot air just now? Okay, remember at school, if we was paying attention to our science teacher, what does he tell us about cold air?
Down.
That goes down. And what does warm air do?
Go up.
Well, most of that warm air is coming through all those tunnels. It gets bottled or screwed into that bottleneck, and as it comes to the shaft, that starts pushing up. So, on average, cold air, fresh air is only going to get about 100 feet down, and then it'll just get pushed up by the warm air. Now, all those chimneys down there were basically for cooking the tin. And what they used to do years ago, coffin-shaped ovens of all things, coffin-shaped ovens full of charcoals or coals. In would go the tin, about 600 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, I will point it out to you when you get down in the bottom, you'll see Levant's arsenic works. And in their arsenic works, they had tunnels going underground, about 10 feet underground. All those tunnels would lead to those chimneys. Now, at home, just like when you burn a coal fire, what do we get going up the chimney? We get smoke, and what forms inside the chimney? Soot, exactly. And that's basically what happens with the tin soot. That is arsenic forming on the inside of those chimneys. Now, years ago, young miners and miners would have to go in there and scrape that all down without any form of protection, and basically wheelbarrow it out, and then stockpile it. Now, it had a use, so that means it become a byproduct. If we go back a few hundred years to the first sort of days of early tin mining, and believe you me, the people that own these mines, okay, they had no interest in you as workers. All they was interested in was money. Okay, these people owned land, they owned estates, they owned mineral rights, and that was their biggest interest, was money. They wasn't caring about your health. Health and safety didn't exist anyhow. So, and I know from a fact, as being a miner as well, I was a stoper, so that means all the drilling I do, and I'm going to explain this, we've got a nice diagram down the bottom, I go up vertically. Developers go horizontally, I go up vertically. And the problem is when you're drilling vertically, as we talked about the machines, because they fire water up to them, that means that you have to stand underneath constant water which is just pouring down over you as you drill all day long. Nothing you can do about it, that's a stoper's life unfortunately. But sometimes it would mean, as I'm drilling, I usually drill 99% of the time either side of the load, but sometimes I would have to go through the load and clip the load, and that meant that the water sometimes would come down and it would run over my face, it would run over my lips, and it would taste sweet, like sweetened water. That's arsenic in the ground. Doesn't happen very often. I would certainly spit quite a lot and then pick up my water bottle, give myself a rinse, and hopefully don't worry about it. We're still here. Touch wood. These machines though changed all that, and basically what happens here is this. Most of these machines were full of two chemicals or two liquids. One was pine oil and the other one was apatane, and basically what happens is the tin goes into that. Your sulfides, like your arsenic, your copper, your oxides, silver and gold, bubble up to the surface and the tin continues its journey. There's be a big paddle on the back of these and it makes a big frothy, reddy, blacky, grey, dirty mass, and these paddles are constantly going around taking that off. When there's enough of that, we then used to ship that off to a company in Finland. They would buy it off us and they would do all the final separations. Now we know that arsenic has a use, and incidentally there's no fumes from this, so it's perfectly safe. But we know the years arsenic has had its uses. Anybody think what we use arsenic for? Victorian wallpaper? Yeah, why? Because it kills off damp spores, or it's supposed to kill off damp spores and whatnot. Certainly pesticides. And when we think about that on those grounds, that during the 1800s here in Cornwall, especially here in Cornwall, a lot of the arsenic went to America. And the reason why it went there is in America they got big cotton plantations, and they used to suffer from an insect known as a boll weevil, which could decimate cotton plantations. Spray arsenic on it. Of course, those poor black slaves who have to spray it on, no protection whatsoever. So again, they're inhaling. In saying that, though, arsenic is used in some medications. So we might have ingested arsenic ourselves, but again, it's in a controlled manner in that way. But again, think about it, it was making money for the mine. And again, believe you me, when these people back then in the 1800s owned these mines, health and safety, they weren't worried about you, they were just worried about getting the money. You was replaceable. Right, let's go on down a bit further.
Go on.
Okay, please put the spirit there.
Go on, buddy.
Okay, folks. So as I've just explained to you just now, from there on in now, basically it's about quality control. It's my chance now to get you going and thinking again. We've got the mill lab here, and basically this used to be situated in a lead-lined bunker up the top of the mill, because this machine takes x-rays all day long of the tin going underneath it. And we used to, believe it or not, in the 50s, we had a computer in Geevor. You couldn't get the internet on it, you couldn't get Facebook on it, but what you did have is a white light and a red light. Red light would indicate not so good, white light flashing all the time, yeah, good tin. And that's what the management like to see. So simply taking x-rays of that throughout the day. So what do we use tin for?
Cans.
Cans, yeah, most obviously, yeah, you're quite right, yeah, tin cans. Today, we do not use it like we used to in tin cans. In today, we take sheets of stainless steel and the dipped in tanks, electrolysis, put the tin in there, electric shock goes through, that wheels the tin to the stainless steel about a millionth of an inch. I love the way they measure it. It ain't quite a millionth, boss, better put it back in a millionth of an inch. But what else do we use tin for?
Alloys of things, I would imagine.
Alloys, yeah, there are alloys. Talk about that in a moment. Well, you've all probably got a bit of tin in your pocket now.
Phones.
Mobile phones. Now we're starting to think. Now we're starting to cook. Yes, electronics. And it's used a lot in electronics around the world, from your, that's if you do play with a PlayStation or an Xbox.
Yeah.
From your washing machines, to your microwaves, to your cameras, to your mobile phones, to your cars, so on, so hundreds of things, knives, forks, tin, oh, it goes on and on and on and on. Do you know that tin is used to stabilise perfume in soap? Tin is used in glass production, so your car is surrounded by tin. Grade A tin, because now we're going to start to grade the tin, now we can grade it A, B and C. A is 70% tin and above, B is around about 50% and C is anything lower than that. But certainly grade A is used in precision engineering, because tin, and you mix it with a bit of zinc, if you use that in bearings, they will withstand high temperatures, so aircraft engines and things like that, for example. So it goes on and on. There are quite a few things. But let's go back a couple of thousand years. Who else liked tin? And make it a bit easier. If we mix tin with copper, what do we get?
Bronze.
Bronze! Who liked bronze?
Bronze Age people.
Bronze Age people. Now we're starting with paper. Let's think of a very well organised, well-disciplined army. Romans, yes. The Romans loved their bronze sword. When they was in Rome going around with all their fancy armour on, nice hot sunshine, eating pasta no doubt, thinking, I've just been promoted to say, have a look at this. What do you think? Well, that's nice, boss. You look quite nice. When they come to Great Britain, all it did is rain. And of course, all the armour went rusty and all that. Can't have that. So they came down to Cornwall. They never settled, or archaeological research tells us that they never really settled in Cornwall. Devon and above Romans settled, but not because they thought we was a bit of a madlock down here, and the same with the Scottish. So they didn't really settle down here. Well, they built Asian War in Scotland to keep them out from up there, but they would come down, and of course they would trade perfumes, olive oil, a number of things to get this valuable tin. Now I'm going to tell you something now, because the mainstay of tin is involved in this, and please take this with a pinch of salt, because after I told you this, I don't want you running off to the cliffs now and said, Stephen said, that's it, I'm jumping off. During the First World War, the price of tin, just before the First World War, the price of tin went through the roof. Just before the Second World War, the price of tin went through the roof. Last summer, tin hit up an all-eye of $32,000 a tonne. Just bear that in mind a moment, because when I finished here, when this mine closed down, it went from an average of £6,000 to £8,000 a tonne in the 80s, which was good money, to just down to a couple hundred quid. I think at one point it even went to about £34. That's why this mine closed. It isn't because we ran out of deposits, because the price of tin collapsed so low, it was no longer financially viable for us to work the mine. Now, getting back to what we were saying, it reached an all-time high. What is happening in the world at the moment? What's happening? Ukraine, thank you, sir. We've got the Ukraine war. We are shipping out armament to them, and so is a lot of other countries. We have to replace that armament. Copper and tin as boundless in armament. It builds ships, tanks, bullets, bombs, atom bombs, atomic bombs, if you want to call them that. A whole host of this. And electronics, because that's where a lot of modern warfare is now. It's all about electronics. So tin certainly plays a big part in armament. Whether that is a pure coincidence, I certainly don't know. But again, take it with a pinch of salt. Don't go running off now thinking, Stevie's just told us World War III is on the horizon. Right. We've just had an earthquake off Cornwall last week. Yeah, it was on the, what's this? Richter scale, thank you. Recorded about 1.5 or 2.8, wasn't it? Something like that, yeah. I think it was, you know. It's a bit nerving, isn't it, really? So we don't want a third world war doing earthquakes just happening off here as well. Let's go on there. As we go by, this was Geevor's original house on which we just talked about the last year. You will see it's a bit white in there, and after it tends to go back a bit white around the but again, we would not be able to use that now, how can you say we did that?
Oh my god.
I certainly do. It's in the, you go up it 10 times a day in a row, mate. Okay, folks, the last 10 then is more or less all the water treatment that it needs. So it's just a case now, a couple more things. It's more or less ready to go to the solvent. Now, one thing we've got to do now is magnetic separation. That tin's going to be passed under this very powerful magnet. Now, on the last 3 guided tours I did, everybody got this right, so don't let me down. Is tin magnetic or non-magnetic? Pardon? Let's have a show of hands. Who says magnetic? Who says non-magnetic? Oh, it's right here. Yeah, you guys are all right. It's non-magnetic. Let me down today.
The question asked, why would you pass it through underneath the magnet? For what?
You got it? There's the answer in the clue. Yes. What was that chap was just saying? Why would you pass tin under a magnet? Do you remember all those balls we just talked about at the ball mill?
Yeah.
Well, as they break down, they're going to break down in splinters. So we've now got to get rid of them. So they'll be sucked up by the magnet. And of course, there's other irons coming out from underground as well, which have all been ground up through the whole process. That gets sucked up by the magnet. It goes around, and on the back of the magnet, there's a fine jet of spray of water that washes that off. And of course, when we get so much of that, send it all off and get new balls made. So we're not wasting again. That water that we've used throughout the plant, that now will go down to what we call the slimes tank or settling tanks, or Cornish version, or Cornish name for that as was known as butter pools. And basically what they even used to do years ago was dig out a bit of the ground so they could pour water in it, and basically any tin that we've missed will go into those settling tanks or into the butter pools, and of course we all know the weight of that will sink to the bottom and everything else will go off. Now that water would be sluiced back into the sea. Now back in the 80s when I worked there, if you came down there, you looked at that sea up to about 500 or 600 metres offshore, and you go, oh my God, because that would be wrecked. We couldn't do that today because that's poisoning the marine environment. Certainly South Crofty mine at the moment, because of what's happening in the world with lithium and all that lot, and tin, could be starting again because they are rebuilding their water plant. Nobody's telling us any more than that. We don't know why. But most certainly, if this mine was to run again now, we would have to have a water plant where that water would all have to be filtered off before we sluiced it back into the sea. That stuff down there now, that's known as slurry as well. Yeah, pick that all up and bring it straight back up to the top of the mill, and it goes through the whole mill again. Again, looking for 98, 99% recovery from that. Out of 1,000 tonnes a day, we're roughly looking at 4 to 5 tonnes of tin. Doesn't sound a lot, but that's an average. Sometimes it's a lot more, sometimes it's a lot less. Now the tin goes to here. There's all these drums there, which are basically glorified tumble dryers. I don't mean to be sexist here. I was told off last week for saying this, but ladies, if you brought your washing in, your bedding, it'd be dry in about 2 minutes flat. And then, of course, into the hoppers, where it's all bagged up, and then we used to sell it off. Now, the smelters that it used to go to back in the 80s when I was here was in Liverpool. Some of the coppers, many, many years ago, before my time, used to go to Wales for smelting, and some of it actually used to go to Romania. And we always knew that when our tin went to Romania, because you get back all the bags and have a big black eagle stamped on it. So we actually dealt with Romania as well. But from there, it probably went all around the world. Cornish tin probably went all around the world. Right, we're going to move on a little bit more. There's a diagram I want to show you now before. I know you're all dying to go on the ground. Now, I explained to you earlier on, there's two types of quality glasses underground. Actually, they're not known as quality glasses underground. If you're a jeweler blaster, you're known as a machine man. That's what they call it. Oh, Steve, he's a machine man underground, or so-and-so, he's a track layer, or so-and-so, he's a timberman. Now, I've talked to you about stoping, and you're all looking at me and saying, what is he going on about? What's stoping all about? Well, basically, stoping is possibly the biggest way that we get all our tin out from underground. And we've got a good diagram here. We've got a tunnel here, which has been made by developers. Developers do all the horizontal tunnels. So let's call this level 1, and let's call this one level 2. Of course, the developers have gone through there. If we take this reef, that's another name for a load, a reef. If we turn that now on its side, you can see the load going right down through the ground, which is developed over millions of years, even billions of years. Basically what happens is all those millions of years ago, all that lava coming up, the earth was forming, and basically what happens is it all started to cool, it started to rain, it started to snow, and all sorts. That heated ground would crack. And as it cracked, it would fill the water, and other minerals associated with it would leap into there, form up, and then eventually form the things that we're looking for. So, once they've gone through, it's my job to come in, and then I start creating these small shafts with raise holes. They're about 16 feet apart, and I go up, and eventually I start fanning out, me and my partner, we're working teams of two, till eventually we form this upside down staircase, which are known as benches. And every day we come in and drill these benches. Sometimes we're about 6, sometimes 8 feet deep, these benches. And we start off with 3 drills, a 2 foot, a 4 foot, and a 6 foot, and an 8 foot. We're doing 8 foot benches. Incidentally, in here now, there's no air whatsoever. And the heat in here is ridiculous. Right? You just cannot get no air in here whatsoever. And it probably stinks and smells as it does of stale blasting from the day before, which can give you a bit of a bad headache, actually. These machines all weigh around about 95 to 100 pounds. I have to climb a 30-foot ladder, going down there, a 30-foot ladder with that on my shoulder every day. That's the first thing I do when I get in, because you can't leave your machinery there while you're blasting. You do not want to bury your machinery up. The management don't keep too kind to that. They might let you off once, but after that you'll probably be looking to get off that job. All your hair hoses and water hoses have to be carried out, the drilling boards, the steel, everything. Everything is lifted and carried by hand. And even when you have to carry this machine up over this is all broken ground. It's like going up the Pebbley Beach with a 100-pound weight on your back. You have to get used to doing it. Nobody's going to do it for you. You get rigged in, you drill these benches all day long. At the end of the day, you take out all your drilling equipment, and then you go off to the army, you get your dynamite or gelatinite, whatever you're using. You have to carry that then up the ladder, over the front, to get where you're going to charge up, to get ready to blast for the day. Eventually, you'll go up and up and up and up and up till you get to this next floor. Basically what happens there is we'll go in there, we'll take out all the track that was laid, all the piping, that's air and water, and anything else in there, and eventually we'll blast that floor. We will not save nothing. Even this floor down here, eventually, once we've mined it all out, That was taken out by what was known as pillar recovery crews, because even the load is even in those bits of pillars. We will rake the whole ground. We will not leave nothing behind. Which means, if we go over to these photographs, which will explain a bit better, these are earlier workings, but the actual concept of tin mining has not changed for hundreds of years. The difference being is that we have the technology and the machinery, they did not. But here is a good photograph of the stope once it's all been stoped out. Another one here. When you're in those stopes working, if I put my arms out like that, that's roughly the width of it, maybe a bit narrower. The trouble is with these stopes, this is called the hanging wall, this one here, and this is called the footwall, because in most cases, most of your loads roughly go up at a 15-degree angle, something how they formed all those millions of years ago. So that means that sometimes this wall here has got a nasty habit of coming off in slabs. And when they come off in slabs, they come off in 3 or 4 ton slabs. So that means throughout the days I'm drilling, as I go to change my machines out and my drills away from my machine, I'll just stop the machine, make it quiet, take the drill out and I'll tap around them constantly. If I hear that type of sound, it's time to get out, move from where you are, because this is coming away. However, don't think of it that is dangerous, Steve. It doesn't happen every day. And every day you're constantly checking this side wall anyhow, this hanging wall. You're constantly, don't worry about the footwall because that's leaning that way, but you're constantly checking. And the most dangerous, I would say, the 2 drilling jobs in the mine, stoping is possibly the most dangerous. Because we've got stuff up here, which can constantly fall out the ceiling on us. And just to make it a little bit more fun for you, in most cases when I'm drilling, I've got to be up here 30 foot off the ground on 2 boards, which vibrate like mad when you're drilling. Don't worry about it because it's dark and you can't see the bottom. So don't panic about that. As my partner used to say to me. And we will blast this every day and we'll fill this up, fill up. And the trammers will come along and they will sink it and they will take away that rock in those wagons, take them back to the grizzly to be dumped, etc. Now, we talked about water. Now, 2 ideas on these stopes. If the price of tin fell, like it did with us, and the tin we're getting, say for example, a lot of the tin we're getting out from under the ocean floor was all grade A, we could fill these stopes up once we've emptied them and leave it in there, bank it underground. Oh, hello, the price of tin's gone up, right, go get that. Yeah. The problem with these stopes is once they were mined out, back in the 80s we bought the mineral rights to Levant, the metallic mine, and we decided to go into their mines and take off where they left off. The trouble is with these stopes is they have a tendency to fill up with water. And when they do fill up with water, it's millions of gallons of water. These things can be huge. Because if I go through the next level and into the next level, I've already created a canyon which is 200 feet deep. I've go up into the next level as well and create a canyon which is 300 feet deep, and these will go through the mine. That's why now we're all standing, all these stopes are underneath your feet now. And that's why we say in Cornish tin mining, you will notice when you go underground, there's no pit props, because granite is quite solid. But it does tend to give away once in a while. So that means one day even Pendeen might disappear down into all these stopes. We simply don't know. But they would fill up with water. You imagine a development crew coming across now. If they drilled into this and they didn't know that stope was there, they'd be drilling all of a sudden on the face and they'd notice water coming through the cracks. Time to turn the machine off and run like hell. Because if that face comes off, that's going to take you out and everybody else on the level. So that's why in 1830 in Parliament they declared that all mines had to keep survey records because they never used to. You need to go into a mine and find out what's been mined, how many levels there are, how many tunnels there are. We also long hole drill, where a team will drill for hundreds of meters into the ground. They will take core samples as well, core samples of the load, and this will also tell them if any dead stopes are in there full of water. Saves us then a lot of aggravation. It's going to be lovely underground. Right folks, follow me, let's have a look at this arrangement. feel free to take photographs of your own. Are we having fun yet?
Oh, nice to stand up for a second.
Whoa, yeah. 90 meters. See the dust coming up. If you look at the light, you can see the dust
Yeah.
coming up.
Yeah.
Ladder shaft way. Oh my god. I did forget to say that £17.50 to get in. You get a free guided tour included in that, and there's a cafe that you can go in, and there's also a little shop also you can go into as well. So there's that. Okay, so I'm back home now from the little tour. I didn't get to record that other last bit as I showed on part 2 as the actual mine closed. So yeah, never mind. Always time I can go back. So that's going to be it for this video. And this is the last part of the Geevor Mine tour. So if you like what I'm doing, smash the like button. If you're new to the channel, punch that subscribe button. And Allister Durham Outdoors, over and out.